Morning in Leeds City Bus Station, and welcome to the Every Bus vlog. 3 routes today. I'm heading up to Ilkley Moor, and no, I didn't bring a hat. I'm not too worried about catching my death of cold this time of year though. The 33 and the 34 run up Kirkstall Road, clipping the edge of Horsforth at New Road side, before briefly diverging at Yeadon and getting back together again at Guiseley. The 33 stops there, and the 34 goes on to Menston and Otley. Meanwhile, the X84, as its number suggests, does take a slightly more direct route, heading through Headingley, Addle, Bramhope, Otley, Burley and Wharfdale, and finally finishing at Ilkley. Now, the X84 has a bit of a checkered history. It used to run all the way up to Skipton, but doesn't anymore. In fact, for a few months at the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, it didn't run at all. It was replaced with 2 local services timed to marry up with the other Headingley buses. So bad were these services, and so poorly received the changes, First made the rare decision to actually listen to passengers, and they reinstated the X84 in February. In theory, you can't ride the X84 between Leeds and Headingley. Northbound, it's pick-up only as far as Wheatwood, and southbound it's set down only for the same distance. I don't know how that works in practice. Before we start properly, I do need to let you know that I only have about half the footage I wanted for this episode. My glasses broke and my vision's bad enough that I can't legally drive without them. And as you may have noticed, I have a lot of footage of the bus station because the bus I was planning to catch was cancelled. I suppose it had to happen eventually. But the way it was cancelled was odd. The departure board didn't show it as cancelled at all. It just showed a scheduled bus with a scheduled time instead of what I would normally expect, which is a number of minutes or the word due. Then the bus just vanished from the board. I've been told that this is fairly common, and if I was cynical, which I absolutely am, I'd say that first do this to avoid penalties for cancelling too many bus services. So I needed to salvage something out of the day. I could ride the 33, or I could wait for the 34. The difference between the 2 routes isn't huge. The 34 goes through Yeadon, the 33 kinda skirts the edge, and then stops short at Guiseley. I could ride the 33 part of the way, then change onto a 34 to carry on to Otley. But the risk is, if the 34 doesn't end up running, I'll end up stranded in Guiseley. If I wait for the 34, it'll either show up and I can ride it to Otley, or it won't. And if it doesn't, I'll still be in Leeds anyway, with plenty of bus station B-roll for another day. The 34 is a long ride, and the X84 isn't that much quicker. So I decided that today would be the day I'd use my free train ticket. I've had it in my back pocket for a few years now. What happened many years ago, Northern cancelled a service on me, and I got a free single ticket valid for any journey. Oddly, it didn't come with an expiry date. So the adjusted plan. Wait for the number 34, and if it shows up, ride it all the way. Then catch the X84 north to hit as many places I've never been for as possible, rather than recover old ground through Addle and Headingley. Then I'd ride the train back to Leeds and head to Specsavers. The 33 came and went, and I was tempted to hop on, but I really didn't want to get stranded in Guiseley. My plan to come home by train would still have worked. There are trains from Guiseley to Leeds, but it would have made for a much less satisfying trip. So I waited. Finally, mercifully, the next 34 showed up. It's not a very frequent service. It runs at odd intervals of, well, about 34 minutes as it happens. I ended up waiting almost an hour for the bus. Thankfully, that was to be the end of my woes. It left me a little short on time, but everything else went just according to plan. Onto the bus, and it's a long one. We're on here from end to end, all the way to Otley. And I do have a couple of places I want to talk about along the way, so settle in. The footage I was able to get was a bit underwhelming. I had planned on going back to film static shots and B-roll, but not having glasses has kind of nixed that idea. The first place I want to point out, which is near the site of Armley Canal Road railway station as was, is Cardigan Fields. Cardigan Fields is a large out-of-town leisure facility with cinemas, bowling alleys, some restaurants, a gym, and for some inadequately explored reason, an Aldi. They really do seem to be popping up everywhere. Shortly after, we pass Kirkstall Abbey. There are 2 bus stops at either end here. It's a Cistercian monastery dating back to the 1150s. These days, it's in ruins, and those ruins are Grade 1 listed. Grade 1 listing is the highest protection available to buildings under English law, which basically means they have to be preserved in their current state forever. Of course, they weren't always ruins. What happened was Henry VIII decided he didn't like monasteries, so he took them all for himself and then sold them. A lot of buildings and relics were destroyed or left to rot. Eventually, after many giftings and many sales, in the 1880s the abbey ended up being given to the council. By that point it was pretty much as it is now. The council spent a few years restoring it as best they could, and the grounds were turned into a public park. The abbey building itself is now open to the public, and the gatehouse across the road is now the Abbey House Museum. I sense there's a lot to explore here, and I'll be back when I can drive again, but for now the bus has already moved on, so let's catch up. New Road Side is next. It's an area of Horsforth, just south of the town centre, known for its independent shops. It reminds me a bit of Hare Hills in that it just keeps on going and going. Now, this part of town aims a little more upmarket than Hare Hills, but there's still plenty for the likes of me. There's a few pubs, a couple of really nice looking cafes. I mean, there's a day out here all by itself, and we're only half a mile from the centre. Rather than heading north to Horsforth, the 34 carries on west. At this junction in the centre of Rawdon, the 33 and 34 diverge for the first and only time. The 33 goes pretty much straight on to Guiseley, but on the 34 we bear right and head into Yeadon proper. We come almost but not quite close enough to the airport to see planes, before we turn left at Murgatroyd's, supposedly one of the best chippies in this part of town, and somewhere I'm definitely going to have to keep on my radar for when I do the airport buses. I didn't get to see much of Yeadon itself. We mostly just negotiated a one-way system between buildings. Yeadon felt very claustrophobic. There is a lot here, but what I want to focus on is the town hall, which is now a theatre, and for a theatre with roughly 300 seats in a small town, there is a lot going on. Some particular highlights: an adults-only pantomime, a Disney show, and a Peter Kay tribute act. A tribute act for a stand-up comic, one who is still alive and actively touring, and there are tickets available for his show in Leeds. Anyway, I don't understand why the act exists, but it must be really good because it's sold out. They added a second night, and that one's sold out too. Anyway, after Yeadon, we carry on to Guiseley as if nothing happened. The main road, Queensway, takes us all the way up to Guiseley railway station, and it is very much a station. Not much to talk about, really. A very nice church nearby, though, the Church of St. Oswald, who's apparently the patron saint of Guiseley. News to me. And even someone as cynical as me can see how much effort goes into the upkeep of the church. Seems to be something of a point of pride of the town. Speaking of pride of the town, a short distance later we passed Guiseley Football Club. Again, at least from the road, seems quite impressive for a non-league side. Although I suppose that's to be expected from a club that's relatively recently been one division shy of the league. And this is where the 33 terminates, and where I would have had to end if I'd been stranded here. Fortunately, I'm on the 34, so we keep going. Menston's our next stop as we leave Leeds for Bradford. We have a brief detour to go through the centre of town and past the railway station. There's quite a lot of construction work going on, so we're not really seeing Menston at its best. There are some buses which go all the way into the railway station and stop in the car park, but this isn't one of them. The 653 and 962 do that, but not the 34. There really isn't much to see from the bus route apart from the station, sadly, just lots of houses with lots of hedges, so I don't really have much to say about Menston, which is a shame. But our last stop on the 34 is Otley, which is a small town between Bradford and Harrogate, so of course it's part of Leeds. Leeds has a weird panhandle in the northwest, and I haven't been able to figure out why. Otley is perhaps best known for Otley Chevin. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's a 700-acre nature reserve just south of the town, but we unfortunately don't go anywhere near that. I'm just going to play you the video of what awaited me when I got off the bus in the centre of Otley. To be clear, I didn't cherry-pick this. All I did was I got off the bus and carried on forwards under the large Welcome to Otley sign. Again, I started feeling a little claustrophobic, but it reminded me of the shambles in York somehow. And because this area is entirely pedestrianised, it didn't feel anywhere near as bad. Of course, there are roads through Otley. This just happens to be a pedestrianised area. Now, the bus station itself is a 5-stand bus station with no combined departure board, just flagboards on each individual stand. Considering it only gets roughly 10 buses an hour, give or take, that's fine. Wasn't a problem finding my onward bus at all. And my onward bus did show up right on time. Well, actually a little early, so we waited for the timetable to catch up. And then we set out for the comparatively short journey to Ilkley. As I mentioned at the top of the video, the X84 is only a limited service south of Wheatwood, which is just north of Headingley. Out here, it's actually a regular stopping service. We do stick mainly to the main road though, and the views up here are utterly incredible. We're very much in quaint territory now, as if we weren't already, what with Otley looking the way it does. And we're heading into Spa country. Burley and Wharfdale is our first destination. The main road, the imaginatively named Burley Bypass, bypasses Burley. But we go one road south to serve Main Street. There's just a handful of stops along here, and the last timing point of the route, then we're off to Ilkley. We enter Ilkley from the east through Ben Ridding, a weird name for a Yorkshire town, for a simple reason. It used to be called Wheatley, but it was renamed in the 1800s after a hydrotherapy consortium established the Ben Ridding Hydro. It was named Ben Ridding because it was a hotel built in a Scottish style, so they wanted to give it a vaguely Scottish-sounding name. As for the hydro bit of the name, the only thing you need to know about hydrotherapy is nothing, so let's move on. Finally, we reach Ilkley, our final destination of the day. Because of all the fracas with the buses this morning, I actually didn't get much time to look around Ilkley, and I think I missed out. Ilkley, being an old spa town, has a lot to offer, but all I got to see of it was the railway station, and the bus station that's outside the railway station. So I'm going to have to come back at some point. I did get to see the inside of the station though, because that was my trip back to Leeds sorted. A quick chat with the ticket office staff later, I handed over my free ticket voucher and got a ticket for travel on the train that was just pulling in. So I turned off my camera to have a little bit of downtime on the trip back to Leeds before the second half of my day out, which will be next fortnight's episode. So we very much reached our last stop for the day. Thank you for watching, thanks for coming along with me. Remember to check out the Patreon, where you can watch these videos free and ad-free, or for the price of a day ticket. Well, less than a day ticket now, they've put the prices up, haven't they? But you can watch videos whenever they're done, instead of waiting for every other Friday. And whatever else, please don't forget to thank your driver.